Hi, my name is Dasha and this is day 18 of my Talking to the Camera challenge. I really had to force myself to sit down and film something today. I really didn't feel like I had any energy. This is really taking a toll on me by now, trying to film every single day, and I know I've been slipping up and messing with my schedule a little bit, but I'm only doing it for this month. My goal right now is to not let myself ruin that motivation and ruin that excitement that I feel I'm getting from filming. So I won't push myself too hard, and if I feel like I need a break on a weekend or if I feel like I don't want to film, I won't film. And I guess that this is the best way for me to finish this challenge. I'll just kind of film as many videos as I physically can and will enjoy for the rest of February, and then starting from March, I'll be more kind of lenient with myself and allow myself to film videos on any single topic, because I won't have this purpose again of trying to improve my speech on camera, and I won't have this purpose of having to regularly practice. I'll just work with what I have at that point and just kind of try to make it as enjoyable for myself as possible. After all, I really wanted to just develop a new hobby here. I really wanted to just kind of make sure it's enjoyable for me, entertaining for me, exciting for me to talk about. And I've realized that if I feel like I felt this morning, having to drag myself into this chair in front of this camera, then I'll give up as quickly as I did 2 years ago when I first started the channel. Nonetheless, I opened my topics for this challenge. You know, I have them on my phone in my task manager, and looked at what I had planned for today, and the topic kind of stirred something in me that made me actually want to sit down and film. I almost decided that I wasn't going to be filming today. I was this close to just telling myself, okay, it's fine, you can just slack off. And I would, and then I looked at the topic and I was like, this is actually a bit exciting to talk about. And the topic is guilty pleasures, and why are they guilty? Because I feel like a lot of us are enjoying things that are considered in society guilty pleasures. And it's stuff like, I don't know, rewatching Twilight, or stuff like rereading books for the 10th time, and people are looking at you like crazy, like, why are you doing this? And we genuinely find enjoyment from these activities, and it's just a bit embarrassing to share for some reason. So I want to explore why we enjoy guilty pleasures and whether there is actually anything embarrassing about them at all, and why this feeling of guilt and shame for doing those things arises when we talk about them or when we're asked about them. So why are these pleasures guilty, and why don't we talk about them? It's because we're afraid that people that we tell about stuff that we enjoy will kind of laugh it off and somehow see us in a different light after we share that with them. For example, I know for a fact that if I share with somebody that I'm rereading my favorite book, Jane Eyre, for the 5th time, for the 7th time in my life, they will look at me saying, you're crazy, like, you know what's gonna happen. Why don't you find something new? Why don't you find a new book to read? Why don't you do something productive instead? And I feel like that novel is my guilty pleasure, because I let myself and allow myself to reread it whenever I feel like I need some kind of relaxation or entertainment. Another example is that I have watched the whole Friends series, you know, the whole 10 seasons, about 6 times in the last 4 years. I started watching it 4 years ago, so 6 times in my lifetime, but it took me about 4 years to rewatch the whole series, the whole extent of it, 10 years of episodes, 6 times altogether. And again, that's a guilty pleasure of mine, because I literally rewatch the same thing and kind of stay in my comfort zone, and it's not even, you know, that good masterpiece kind of TV. It's just familiar and it's just comfortable, and you're watching it to kind of feel more grounded and turn your brain off, switch your brain off and relax. Maybe to an extent to escape from everyday life. Whatever it is a guilty pleasure, because should you tell somebody that you're rewatching Friends for the 6th time, they'll look at you again, why don't you do something productive? Why won't you, you know, spend this time working or studying or doing something that's more kind of wholesome than just lying down in front of a TV or a laptop and watching stuff that you've already seen? And I completely get that. But then nonetheless, for some reason, guilty pleasures are usually this comfort zone for us that brings us this sense of calm and safety and familiarity. So we don't need to open our brain and perceive anything new or learn anything. We can just kind of get stuck in this bubble of enjoying ourselves and relaxing. Now, when I ask myself a question of whether I should feel guilty when doing those things that bring me pleasure but aren't necessarily approved of by people around me, the first answer that instinctively comes to mind is no, this is not something to feel guilty for, therefore I can just enjoy it. But unfortunately, my brain is not so easily convinced. And I need proof that this is not something to be feeling guilty about and this is not something to feel ashamed of. Otherwise, this feeling of guilt won't go away. And mind you, it's a very strong feeling, right? It can outshine everything else that you're feeling. It can outshine the enjoyment from doing these activities because you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm so lowly that I let myself kind of enter the cycle of doing my favorite things and not move forward. So when I was thinking about guilty pleasures, I needed to convince myself, to prove to myself why I shouldn't feel guilty. And I came up with a few things, not sure how convincing they are, but at least they worked on me. First of all, I accepted that my brain needs to rest sometimes. And this rest is impossible when I'm trying to absorb new information or when I'm trying to follow kind of new plot lines or when I'm trying to do new things. This is when my brain is active and it's trying to remember things and it's trying to kind of absorb or learn something. Now, when I re-enter, my favorite hobbies that are considered guilty pleasures, either because I'm redoing them for 1,000th time or, for any other reason, maybe it's just not popular for some reason with other people, I don't have to think. It's something that I've done so many times and I've indulged on so many times that I don't have to turn my brain on and think. Instead, I can just fall out of this kind of world and switch myself off and tell myself it's okay to just let myself go for a little bit and enjoy whatever it is that I'm doing and not care about what's going on in my real life. Now, the key thing here is obviously not to overdo it. It's okay to do it for, a couple hours at a time and then come back to reality. But this kind of guilty pleasure concept is super useful to just disconnect and not have to think about absorbing anything new, learning anything new. You don't have to think about what's prestigious or what's widely accepted by everyone. You just think about what makes you feel good in the moment, what will make you relax, what will make you rest. And then you do this thing, guilty pleasure or not. And it's normal to allow our brain to fall into this pattern and to return to familiarity, because it's familiarity that's, the most comforting, the most calming to us. So if we've done something 10 times and we want to do it for the 11th time, likely we already know how it's gonna go. The feeling of being able to predict, the next hour of your life is a very calming one. And we should let ourselves do it once in a while, just to avoid burning out. And next, to kind of cope with these feelings of guilt and shame while kind of indulging on these pleasures, I try to select a certain time to let myself kind of fall out of the real world and do whatever I need to relax. Because if I told to myself from the early morning or from the night before even that tomorrow after work between 5 and 6 p.m. I will, open my laptop and reread a chapter of my favorite book, then I know 100% that I've already dedicated this time. I've already kind of set this time aside. I will be able to juggle my tasks and things that I have to do around this time and nonetheless give myself this break to do whatever it is that I consider to be my guilty pleasures, right? So selecting this kind of certain time takes away the guilt aspect of, oh my god, I could have done something useful with this time, because you promised yourself this hour or hour and a half or whatever time frame it is in advance, and then you've kind of shifted your day so that you can fit everything else around this hour and a half to kind of make sure that things get done. Next, I really try to focus on the pleasure part of it, not the guilty part of it, because in reality, who is standing there and telling me that this is a guilty pleasure? Who is blaming me for doing these things? Who is blaming me for wasting my time? No one really. There are no people around me who are actively, verbally kind of placing the blame on me or shaming me for doing these things, for enjoying these things. And if there was a person in my life who kept consistently telling me, oh, you should do better, you should have spent this time working, or you should have spent this time learning something new, then how much attention should I really pay to that? Is it worth my attention at all? How important is the opinion of these people to me? And it turns out that even if everyone around me turned to me and started telling me that, oh, these are absolutely guilty pleasures, you shouldn't be doing them, you should focus on something more productive, I really wouldn't take it close to heart. I have a strict separation in my head between opinions that I've asked for and opinions that I haven't. So even if I told somebody about a guilty pleasure of mine and they started actively shaming me for enjoying these things, then I would put it in the basket of unasked opinions, unauthorized opinions, if you will. And this really wouldn't have an impact on my life, or at least not an impact as harsh or as profound as my brain is afraid it would be. And that kind of brings me to the next point, that acceptable tastes and tastes that are kind of classy and approved by everyone else is really a social construct. Only we can decide for ourselves what's important to us, what's interesting to us, and whatever kind of label is put on it is just kind of out there in society. It's not an objective fact of whether what you do should or should not be enjoyed. It's just people's opinions. There's a dog barking outside. I'm not sure how. I'm just gonna keep recording, I don't care. So in reality, there is really no such thing as the right tastes and the wrong tastes. There is just stuff that people enjoy doing and stuff that people don't enjoy doing, and everyone else's opinion on it. But again, the importance that we place on those opinions is entirely up to us, and it shouldn't be defining to what we do in our daily lives to kind of relax and unwind. And finally, the most important kind of conclusion that I arrived to is that whatever I enjoy doing doesn't define who I am as a person. I have character traits and I have hobbies. These two are absolutely separate things. If I enjoy watching really bad quality YouTube documentaries about different criminal cases, that doesn't mean that I am a dark person with psychological problems. That just means that this is the way in which my brain kind of rests, and this is the preferred pastime for when I don't want to think. But it doesn't really have anything to do with my character traits, with whether I'm a good or a bad person, a kind or an evil person. My attitude to other people isn't really defined by what I enjoy. So why would I let the guilty pleasures drive this sense of guilt in me if in reality it doesn't really change who I am? Once I thought about that, my brain was sufficiently convinced that I can happily continue indulging in my guilty pleasures as long as it's moderate and doesn't really take away from my life, as long as it doesn't have a bad impact on my life. Guilty pleasures are innocent. There are these little things that we do to relax, and even though I tried, I couldn't find a single reason to deny myself these small guilty pleasures. I realize that now I don't really place enough importance on the opinions of others to care and to let it impact my decision of, what I should enjoy and what I shouldn't enjoy. I just kind of do things that I like as long as they don't harm me or others. They're completely innocent to do. And I've also realized that in the past there were a few situations where I've been actively shamed for my guilty pleasures, for enjoying these things. And yes, I will admit it impacted me as a teenager because I was really looking for, approval from my family or for approval from my friends. But at this point in life, I can just enjoy doing what I'm doing, do whatever I have to provide myself that moment of rest and relaxation and calm, and allow myself to unwind, because otherwise I know I will burn out. So I've arrived to the point where maybe I can honestly tell myself that opinions of others are less important to me right now than just knowing myself and letting myself do what I enjoy. So yeah, I guess if you have guilty pleasures, think about why they are guilty to you, whether anyone has actively shamed you for them and how it made you feel, and whether the feeling of guilt should really impact you more than kind of the enjoyment that you derive from these activities. Most likely the answer will be no. And this was an interesting kind of discussion to have with myself, because I'll be honest, the feeling of guilt is something that I'm super familiar with since I was a kid, and obviously that also has its impact on my kind of understanding of guilty pleasures and my desire to fit in. So it took a while to convince myself that anything that is innocent to me and other people shouldn't really cause this feeling of guilt, because guilt arises in me whether it's a situation worthy of guilt or not. So it's not really something that I control 100% of the time. I've been told that I apologize a lot, actually probably too much for that matter, and that I really shouldn't feel guilty, that it's an unauthorized feeling of guilt when I enjoy doing something that's harmless to me or other people. On that point, I think I'll be wrapping this up, because even though it was an interesting topic for me to cover, it's relatively short and there is not much else to be said on this. I just kind of shared my own conclusions on the idea of guilty pleasures and whether I personally should actually feel guilty for enjoying them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope it kind of triggered some reflection on the matter, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!